Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast, where you get to choose, change and take action to create a different today and a different future. These are my stories of choice, change and action, along with the phenomenal guests I have on here. From a really young age, I've always desired to create a change in the world. The planet has been a constant inspiration to me, and Access Consciousness has shown me the tools to know that anything is possible. And I keep choosing. What are you going to choose? Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast. God, I love the name of that podcast. Oh yeah, it's my podcast because you get to choose, you get to change, and you get to take some action. And the action is quite often the thing that so many people are not that willing to have a look at. So you just have me today, okay? Nobody else, just me. And don't forget, you can join us on YouTube if you desire. Oh, and I'm going to mention before I forget, we also have Choice, Change and Action has its own little Instagram handle now. So if you're not following it, maybe follow it there. We do little, sound bites and things like that. Hopefully if you want to check it out and it's like that moment in the day that you're like, it's like, oh, what's going on? Maybe you check it out and maybe there's a little inspiration there for you. Maybe not. Maybe you hate it and you can just unfollow it. Whatever you choose, because it's your choice, okay? So I wanted to talk to you today about something that is very close to me. Yes, very, very close to me. And that is the rightness of my point of view, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to tell you this little story, and this was quite a few years ago. I was in Italy, and Gary Douglas, who's the founder of Access Consciousness, he wasn't doing too great. His body was not doing that great. And we had facilitator training showing up, which has been, Gary Douglas and Dane here facilitating it for quite some time, facilitating the facilitators. So I was worldwide coordinator of Access Consciousness for 18 years and loved it, and then they asked me if I would like to start facilitating Choice of Possibilities classes, which is more of one of the advanced classes. And I said yes. Eventually realized, if I actually desire for consciousness to grow on the planet, I've got to be willing to give something up here. So I gave up the worldwide coordinator role, and Francesca Frantini is doing that now, and she's amazing. And there's so many staff, and I wouldn't just say, like, take my hat off to everyone that contributes to the whole entire companies across the world. They're just brilliant. And Gary texted me and he said, you're going to have to jump on stage with Dane. I can't get there because his body could literally not get on a flight at that time. So I was like, oh my God. And I freaked out and was like, 48 hours notice. And then later I went, what would I have done if he gave me more notice? Like, what would I have done different? Freaked out for a week or 2 weeks or a month. So I relaxed and calmed myself down and jumped on stage, and facilitators was amazing. It really was. And Gary came halfway through it. So he was also coming on and off the stage as he could. But here's the piece that I wanted to let you know about. We were at a restaurant in Rome and I'm talking to him. I'm thinking I'm talking to him as per normal, which would be my normal. And he looked at me and he looked so frail and didn't have a whole lot of energy. And he said, I can't do this anymore. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, I cannot fight with you with the rightness of your point of view. And I looked at him and I wanted to obviously be right and say, no, I don't have a rightness of my point of view. I'm just aware, or whatever reason and justification I was using. But I looked at him and his body and I realized, I adore this man so much. And if my rightness of my point of view, of me always having to prove that I'm right, is doing this to him, I have to stop this. I have to look at a different possibility. I really do. So at that moment, I made the demand of myself that I would look at this, at how many times in my life I have functioned from, I've got to be right, or it's the rightness of my point of view. And, Gary has said for years and years and years, most people would rather be right than be free. I hear it. And apparently for years and years, I would choose the rightness of my point of view rather than freedom. And even if you just play with that tool, okay, that's one thing you take away today, and you look at it and look, okay, so where am I trying to get it right? And if you weren't trying to get it right, what are the possibilities available? Like, where could you create the freedom for you that you're not currently choosing? And everything at that is times a godzillion, where you destroy and uncreate it. I don't know if you just heard the mailman go by, but he just went by. Right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all nine, shorts, boys, privates, and beyonds. So then I went through these phases. I was like, oh, I'm going to get rid of this rightness. I'm going to get rid of this rightness. And I did a little bit. And then I went to the rightness of my point of view that I had gotten rid of the rightness. And that's the way it works, okay? And this was a few years ago, and it has been unraveling and unraveling and unraveling in my world. And just recently, I just came home from a tour that I did, which was amazing, in Dubai, and Rome was phenomenal. Dane did this, quite an advanced access class called Maestro. And then I went to London and did some stuff. And at Maestro, there was this conversation that showed up about being right. And so, well, I put my hand up to ask a question, but I didn't really have a question. I just had this energy. I was just like, like this, what the fuck is this? That energy. You ever have that where you just like, knowing you desire to change it, and yet it's so ingrained in you. And anyway, so Dane said, why don't you come up on stage? Because Dane does this body work that's amazing. Not body work, it's like energetic work, but your body's up there and you're on a table. So anyway, that's a whole other ball game. And anyway, we did this session and it was phenomenal. And the funny thing is, I didn't have any shoes on, and I had the microphone in my hand, and I was so excited. And I started running for the stage, and in my head, in a nanosecond, I went, I can jump up on this stage. By the way, there's stairs on either side of the stage. I could have used the stairs, and I can jump up on the stage and I can make this. That's a nanosecond, right? Well, I didn't. I didn't make the stage. I attempted to, and my legs just went smack into the stage, and I sort of like fell onto the stage, and everyone in the audience went, this noise. And I stood up straight away and I went, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then I looked at Dane and I went, I'm not fine. And I'd hurt my leg. It was bleeding, anyway, later bruises, blah, blah, blah. But I'm really grateful, because I realized in that nanosecond, that was literally functioning from the rightness of my point of view. I can make this stage. I can jump up on this stage. I got this, Okay, maybe I can, but there was no question. And when you're functioning from rightness, there is no question. So something so small, like this nanosecond. So I still have these, bruises on my leg from it. It was quite a few weeks ago, and this cut on my leg that's healing. But every time I look at it, I have this little chuckle to myself, because I'm like, well, there's the universe showing me, my body going, oi, you know what? What if you asked us a question? What if you were actually in question and not functioning from the rightness of your point of view? So, oh my God, there's so many stories about this. I could tell you a little quick story, because I'm talking about the bodies as well, or my body. Is a while ago, I hurt myself at Pilates, and I was talking to Gary Douglas, and he said, I was about to say something, and he said, don't you tell me it was fun. And I said, it was fun. And I said, I was having so much fun. And he said, you need to stop doing something the second you go to it's fun. And I got so cranky, because I was like, oh, what? Life's supposed to be boring. Like, I can't do something because it's fun. But I was like, hang on a second. I've heard him in a different way. And so I replayed the conversation in my head, and I went, oh, when I go to this is so much fun, I literally stop asking my body a question. And what I was doing handstands, right? So I was doing handstands in Pilates, and I was having so much fun. And then my instructor actually said to me, hey, is your body done? And I went, no, I'm going to do one more. No question, just I'm going to do one more, because I had decided I was having so much fun and I should do another one. This is like, it gets ingrained in you. And I'm going to ask you, as I'm talking about this, are you going, oh my goodness, that's me? Or are you the antithesis, and is wrongness ingrained in your world? Because so many people have either the rightness of their point of view, like trying to prove all the time that they're right, or you have the wrongness of your point of view, always trying to prove that you're wrong. Now, this is not a reason and justification. It is a little bit of a story. And I know I keep looking at this because my whole life, growing up, my mother made me wrong all the time, all the time. So if you have a parent that's making you wrong all the time, what do? Well, I chose to try and find the rightness of me. So, and I looked at this recently and it was like, wow, it was so like woven into my very being. It's like, I must be right. I must find the rightness of me. But here's the thing, you must find the rightness of you, trying to prove that you're not wrong while sort of thinking that you are wrong. And then people who do the wrongness go to, well, I'm trying to prove that I'm not wrong. So I will show you how many ways that I'm wrong so that I can be right with my wrongness. I know. Did you just get confused? It's like, I'm sorry. Everything that is bringing up in your world, will you please destroy and uncreate it? Just press that delete button. Right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine, shorts, boys, provids, and beyonds. And that is the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement, which I'm pretty sure most of you know about it. And if not, go check out theclearingstatement.com. So anyway, recently I've been looking at this whole trip, being away, ever since I had this session, and it's just started unraveling. And I spoke to Gary at one point because I was like, God, can you help me here? I can perceive it coming up, like it's in my world, and I can feel it coming up in my world. And he said to me, it's like one of those bad Christmas sweaters that you get. And I said, well, I grew up in Australia, so they're just on the movies for me, with the big reindeer heads or something like that. But you all know what I'm talking about, right? So he said, it's like one of those, those sweaters. Just grab one piece, like one thread, and pull at it. And just pull that out. And then another one. Because I wanted to, burn the sweater in one go. But if it's that woven into your very being, you need to give a little bit of moment. You need to have some patience with yourself. Now what I've noticed is it rears its ugly head. And I mean, I'm laughing at it, but it's just there. It's like so obvious to me. And I'll tell you a couple of stories. And this one's called the caviar story. So I'm in London and I'm sharing this apartment with my friend Chris and my friend Paula. And Paula was out and I bought some caviar, as one does. And we were eating caviar and drinking champagne. And I'm sitting there with Chris and we're eating caviar and drinking champagne. And Paula walks in. Now, I've had a conversation with Paula recently, okay? And she's never had caviar before. And I knew that. And she walked in and we said, hey, you want some caviar? And she's like, yes, with this like, okay, it looks really strange. And everyone always has a point of view of what caviar tastes like. It's friggin' amazing. I love it. Anyway, whole other point. So, and it's especially good with champagne. So Chris makes her one, a little Bellini, puts the stuff and does this big chunk. And he does this big chunk of caviar. And I went, that's a lot of caviar for someone who's never eaten it before. Like, what if she, doesn't like it? And he looked at me and he goes, well, you do it then. And it was so funny because that energy that showed up, I went, wow. I would have said I'm functioning from awareness, because I've spoken to Paula and she might not like it and her palate might not receive all that caviar in one go. You can make up all the lies you want, all the justifications and all the reasons for your choice. But what I'm asking is, what if you started looking at what you're truly choosing? And I was literally choosing to be right. So, and Chris, my beautiful, wonderful friend, loves to function from the wrongness of him. So I'm functioning from the rightness. He's functioning from the wrongness. So this whole conversation goes on, and poor Paula, like, she's psychic. She picks up on the energy and she's like, and later we had a conversation about it. And she said she went to, oh God, it's so expensive. I don't want to waste it. And I said, that would never be in my world. And she said, I know. She said, you have such a generosity of spirit, Simone. I know that you would never be going, that's a lot of money, don't waste it. Because they wouldn't, right? So she had her own stuff going on there as well. And it's so interesting, the dynamics, 3 people, 3 friends, we work together, we play together, all of that and more. And yet, because we have this point of view that is so ingrained in our reality, we choose this, which shows up as separation. Because that's what I noticed. I went, wow, I function from this. And it sort of unraveled. Like, we didn't have this conversation, at the moment. I perceived the energy and went, what is that? And overnight, I was like, what is that? And then in the morning I woke up and I, had my yoga mat out and I was doing some stretching, and Chris came into the kitchen and I said, hey, I never desire to create separation with you, right? Like, I love you, I adore you. And he's like, yeah, I know. And we had a brief conversation. And then I was talking to Gary about it. And I said, I realized that when you are right, like if I'm functioning from rightness and he's functioning from wrongness, you must create separation because there is a judgment in there, right? And when you're functioning from the rightness, you're not free. And there's the rightness of your point of view does not create this vulnerability of no judgment and communion that you can have with all. And because I noticed the energy, I went, I don't desire to do this anymore. I would like to have my freedom. I would like to be free with every single choice I made, right? So the next day, we're leaving to go to class, and I said to Chris, you're wrong for leaving your lights on, right? And I'm right for saying we should turn the lights off. Like, don't leave the electricity on all day. I don't know, some of you right now are going, yeah, she is right. What if it's just a choice? What if it's not about rightness and wrongness? And we laughed about it because he went, oh, I'm wrong. And I was like, yeah, you have to turn them off. The right thing to do is turn the light switch off. Now, if you function from awareness, then you can just choose, right? You don't have to be right about your choice. So how many of you are proving how right you are about every choice you make? And everything that is times a gazillion, where you destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all names, shorts, boys, perverts, and beyonds. And one of the things I said to Gary is, I feel like every time I open my mouth, it's about the rightness. And he said, yes. He said, beauty and silence are the two things that erase rightness. So one of the things I have been practicing too, which if you know me is not the easiest thing to do, is literally shut the fuck up. Like, start listening. Listen to the people around you. Listen to the land. Listen to the earth. Listen to the whispers of consciousness and shut the fuck up. And then I also was saying to him, I don't even know if I know what awareness is, because I've misidentified for so long that the rightness of my point of view is awareness. Like with the caviar story, going, well, my awareness is she might not like it, so why would you do that? Blah, 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 blah. And it goes down this big, long road of story, rather than, he said to me, well, what if awareness is as light as hell? And heavy makes certainty. So when something's really heavy in your world, it's like, are you trying to get something right? Like the certainty of wrongness, the certainty of rightness, rather than just ask, what's light as hell here? What choice is as light as hell? And everything it doesn't allow you to perceive, know, be, and receive what is as light as hell in your world, in your life, so that you can choose something greater every single moment of the day, where you please destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all names, shorts, boys, perverts, and beyonds. So one of the tools he gave me, and this is the tool I'd like to give you, is to start looking at is when you come to something like this, like the caviar, the lights, because it's usually these little things, right? And if you start changing those little things, then you'll change the bigger things, And he said, stop. Just stop. So stop and then ask a question. Is there another choice here? Is there another possibility here? So I've been doing that, and it's been so fun to see, because there's stuff with work and everything, like people I work with. And if you work with me right now and you're listening to this, sorry. There's these moments that I'm like, someone sends me something and I'm like, I can feel this like rightness thing, like this rightness beast like coming up, and I go, stop. Is there another choice here? Is there another possibility? And if you weren't trying to work it out, because that's the thing I find myself doing, is trying to work out what is that other choice. But that's looking for the rightness rather than giving it space. Like, just give it space. Is there another possibility? Yes. Okay, so what is that other possibility? And what I'm noticing is it's like you've got all these, if you had like a Lego land and all these buildings, and when you stop and go, is there another choice? Is there another possibility? It's like the walls just collapse. And you can see further. You can hear more. Your sensory cortex is alive. Would you be willing to have that space, for that to be your reality, so that you can start choosing to be free rather than to be right. And everything at that is times a godzillion. We destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all names, shorts, boys, perverts, and beyonds. And I wanted to do this show for you in December, because I love this time of year, and I hate this time of year. It's crazy. It's like the whole family thing and everyone, I mean, I grew up with just making sure mum didn't get cranky, and she got cranky anyway. So, I mean, I remember the day that, the year that we were allowed to drink alcohol, and I was like, thank God we can actually drink on Christmas Day, because it was always like tiptoeing around. You got to do the right thing, and there's an order of what you've got to do. And, from the food to the opening presents and all of that, rather than what relaxation can you be on Christmas Day? You might have some traditions, and there's nothing wrong with traditions, but what if you were in question? And when you're functioning from the rightness of your point of view, you can't be in question. So you've got family, you've got Christmas, then you've got New Year. And how many people are trying to get it right? It's like, oh my God, you judge yourself for what you didn't choose this year. So then you set up these stupid New Year's resolutions of what you've decided you're going to get right next year, just so you can judge yourself that you didn't choose it, so you can go to the wrongness of you. And you just maintain this rightness and wrongness shit. Everything of that is times a godzillion. We destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all names, shorts, boys, perverts, and beyonds. My question to you is, what if now is the time and now is the space that you have way too much friggin' fun in December 2022, Christmas time, New Year, whatever it is, have way too much fun, and be aware of you and your body and what you would like to choose, and start choosing that. And even if you just stop and go, what would I like to choose in regards to this? Like, what would be fun for me? What is as light as hell? Ask that question. What is as light as hell here? And choose that. Now, how many of you are not willing to choose what is as light as hell because you'd have to come out of the rightness and the wrongness? That's your choice, my friends. I cannot make you choose. That is your choice. But ask the question, what is as light as hell? And start choosing that and see what shows up. Like, play with this stuff. Play with it. Okay? So I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Oh my God, that sounds like a song. And hopefully this helps. Thank you for being here. Like, I'm really super grateful for all of you guys who listen to the podcast. I get a lot of feedback, and every single, way that you guys, respond to me, whatever platform it is, because there's a zillion platforms. I'm really grateful. I really am. I'm super grateful for your feedback and for your acknowledgement. And I do these podcasts because I would like to see a different world, not from the rightness of my point of view, from literally, this is from the awareness of what I know is possible on planet Earth. And I know we can be that. And it starts with you. So what would you like to choose today? Don't wait for New Year. What would you like to choose today? What works for you? What would be fun for you? What is as light as hell? All right, I'll see you next time, guys. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button on your favorite listening platform to get notified of new episodes. We read all the reviews, so if there's any topic you would like to hear about, let us know. If you'd like to know more about the tools, information, and classes mentioned in the podcast, head on over to SimoneMilasas.com and follow me on Instagram at Simone Milasas, or the podcast has its very own link on Instagram at Choice, Change, and Action. Don't forget, you can download the show notes. And lastly, have way too much fun today.